Hi there, Scott Rendell, Rendell Certified Cleaning Services. As a video to kick off our new VIP program, I wanted to show you one of the things that we do for our VIP customers, and that is a vacuum inspection. Every trip we come out there, we'll do a vacuum inspection. As a bonus video, I'm just going to show you how to do this at home in case you don't want to belong to our VIP program, or if you want to try it yourself. So we have a vacuum cleaner here. This is a Hoover. You can see it's got a wind tunnel design. This is called the PET Rewind. And so my first step on here is to unplug the vacuum. Done. I want to check the bag or the container here to make sure it's not full. So we'll slide this out, and I'm going to come over here to the vacuum or to the garbage real quick and just pop the button. Shake it a few times. This actually comes out. We're going to inspect that. It's got a couple of little things on it. Probably a good idea to take a brush and brush all that stuff out of there. But it's not too bad. If it was worse, I would. For purposes of this demonstration video, I'm not going to brush it. Lock it back together. Get all the rest of the crud out of there. And we have one of the most important pieces done. This is very important to keep that thing clean, because once it gets full, then it stops the vacuum from working. The vacuum flow actually comes up somewhere through here, and actually it comes up through here, and this is the blower side of it. So the next thing we're going to check is the filter. See if that looks good. It's a little crusty, so again, we take it over to the garbage can. Now this is a washable style. See how it's foam? It doesn't have paper on it. This one really should be washed. And again, for purposes of this demonstration, I'm not going to wash it. But what I would do is just take this over to the sink and take some soap and water, warm water, and just kind of wring it through like this. And then I'd let it hang up and dry overnight. And then the next day we put it back together and use the vacuum. This is a HEPA replacement. So this thing every once in a while needs to be replaced. Check your owner's manual, usually at least once a year, probably every 6 months. Alright, so just imagine I've cleaned that, washed it. I'm going to put it back in. This one does not have any more filters to check except for this one and the big one. So I pop that back up, go through my checklist. So I checked that the bag is not full now. I've checked the filter. Good. Alright, next thing we need to do is check the bottom of the unit. So we're going to flip it over. Notice I haven't put it all back together yet because we're going to check a couple more things. We're going to flip it over. We're going to release the upright portion, this part, so we can lay it flat. And the next thing to do is to check the head. The brush, this is called a brush roll right here. This is a brush roll assembly. And somewhere in here, there is a belt. Okay, I don't see the belt, so it's probably underneath this thing right here. What we do is go ahead and unscrew this. The very first thing I'm looking for, though, is to make sure that this thing isn't loaded up with hair. If it is, it needs to be cut off of there. Cut, pulled, and all that stuff. And again, this is a bonus with our VIP program. We do this every trip we come out, so that your vacuum is in tip-top shape every time. Alright, so this should be the last screw. Nope, looks like I got one more. This one way up here. Take that guy off. And I just want to make sure all these screws are the same size so that I put them back in order, and they are. So this thing, in theory, should come right off like that. Usually it comes off from the back to the front, and it's got a little clip underneath there. As you can see, this vacuum really needs some help. So I'm just going to drop this on the floor for right now. This part can be washed in soap and water again, so you take this over to your sink and a brush, soap and water it up. A little bit of hair on here, but it's not so bad. Alright, so I'm just going to take that off. I'm checking the whole brush roll too. I'm going to remove it. And you can see that it's got these swivels on the end. So I'm just checking to make sure the swivels work. This right here is the vacuum port. So this is where the vacuum actually creates that wind tunnel. I'm going to try to dig anything out of there that I can. It looks pretty clear. Alright. That looks good. There's actually a second belt on here you can see. This is the drive belt from the motor, and this drives the brush roll. So this one turns, and it turns this, in turn turns the brush roll. Okay, that looks pretty good. It's got this little tensioner on it too, you can see. And this actually disengages the brush roll when it's in the upright position. So it's important to make sure that that goes right back where it came from. A lot of times these they're square. You can see that these little notches here are square, so we want to make sure we line it up on the square edge of these adapters so we don't strip it out of there. Okay, push that back in and make sure that the brush roll is working, and it is turning the motor. Again, it's super important to make sure you're not plugged in, because you don't want that thing turning on when your hands are in here. Alright, so that's done. Get this little string guy out of the way. And I put this back together. I'm just going to put 1 or 2 screws in temporarily so that we can get rolling. Again, we want to make sure that when we want to reverse the order on assembly. So we're going to clip it up here like this and line everything up before we push it down. Alright, this one's a little bit tricky. There we go. I think I got it this time. Okay, so according to this next step, we'll just go ahead and put a couple screws in. And remember that this thing's clipped in, so I'll come back and show you how I'll put these in after the video. Alright, next step, check the brush roll, we check the belt. Brush roll is clean. Belts, checked them for cuts, tears, frays, they're good to go. We went ahead and cleaned the brush roll. While brush roll is turned over, check the port. We did check that port underneath there, if you recall. Okay, there is a special tool we can use to dig stuff out of there if necessary. We call it a tine. We don't need to dig it out because there's nothing in there. Flip it back over, and we're just about done. Next step is we're going to see this tube right here. This has an attachment hose so that we can put attachments on it like this. And if we have attachments, we just go ahead and take a look inside. Pop this open real quick, make sure it's all clean inside there, the belt's good. Similar to the bottom brush roll, it also clips like this. Make sure you put the head in first and snap it back down. If there's other attachments, we check those too. This one does not have other attachments besides the hose, and we just look down there to make sure it's nice and open. This also has a little crevice tool, I guess, so once again we're going to take a peek down there, just make sure it's open. Alright, so now this hose has a sight tube right here, and as we can see, there's actually a bunch of crap in there that's hindering the airflow through the unit. This one actually has a spot where we can open this up by twisting and turning, and we can dig it out of there. If it's really lodged in there, and sometimes we'll see that too, we just pull off these screws. It's like there's what, 5 screws on this thing. Yeah, if you see a bunch of stuff, we'd use the tine on this too, but I just wanted to show you how to pull this out of here. It's really simple. When I'm looking for a vacuum, I'm looking for conveniences like this in a home unit so that it can easily be cleaned, serviced. We don't have to get out the Starbit driver. We can use a standard Phillips. Some of them are really crazy with their hardware. You just pull that out, dump all that stuff out. You can see it's all crusty with mud and looks like straw. Must be a farm around here somewhere. And while I'm in here, I'm also going to pull up on the top part of this. Just put my finger through. If you look on the other side, you can see my finger. It's right here. So now we know that there's airflow through here. And it's working through this tube. I'm going to look in that tube real quick just to see if there's anything that's blocking it. And that looks good. Alright, so let me finish up my inspection here. Flip back over. I'm supposed to plug it in and check to see if it works. I'll do that after I get all the screws in. And check the hoses for leaks too. The way I would do that, assuming this is all back together, I would take this. Just imagine this is hooked back up to how it was. And I put my hand over top of it just to make sure that it's pulling my hand. If it doesn't, that means there's an obstruction between here and here because we already checked this and we've determined that this part is flowing fine. So the obstruction must be somewhere in the middle of this tube that we can't see. To get that out, just take a broom handle, straighten this part out, and just ram it through, and it should pop right out. Okay, that's how we do a VIP inspection for your vacuum.